Hi guys, it's Joanne here. Oh, you may have noticed I'm not in the studio. We're having some work done in the garden and it's so noisy. You might be able to hear it going on as I speak. Yes, I can hear that. But it is a little bit quieter in the conservatory, so I thought I'd do my little introduction here. A lot of you are still telling me that you're really kind of struggling with the lockdown, especially you artists out there, and you're kind of lacking inspiration and need a bit of motivation. And hopefully I'm here to give you that. Who fancies painting a nice white daisy and a beautiful little butterfly? Something nice and simple. Obviously it's going to involve the washes that we all kind of dread sometimes, but yes, we need to kind of practice those, don't we? So, and not too taxing. You know, I do like these bite-sized lessons where we're not working from a photograph and we're just painting for the pure enjoyment of it and being mindful while we do that. Okay, if you are enjoying these videos, then please do press the red subscribe button or give me a like. That would be really nice. And yeah, so let's get going. I'll see you in the studio. So we've got this nice simple drawing down and it's just basically a daisy shape. I've popped a little butterfly up here as well. This is a nice simple lesson. All really it's about is washes and creating those washes. You may remember the last demonstration I showed you where we looked at watercolour washes in a landscape. Well, you'll find that the washes we use here are very similar, so it's always about the washes. We're going to use 3 colours. I'm going to use the Alizarian Crimson, I'm going to be using the Cobalt Turquoise, and I'm going to be using the Cadmium Yellow. I've got my spray bottle, my water pot, a little scrap of paper. I always like to have a scrap of paper, just so if my palette gets a bit muddy, I can try the washes out onto that, and an 8 and a 12 brush. So let's get going. I do like to put wax resist on a lot of my work, but this time let's just paint by the seat of our pants and have a bit of fun with this. Okay, really I should have, when I spoke about the drawing, by the way, told you there's lots of free reference photographs on Google if you can't see mine. You know, don't worry about it. It's just a simple daisy shape. Not too difficult. You could also trace one, I suppose. Let's take the yellow and think about where the light's going to come from as well. I should have mentioned that with the drawing really, but before you put a drop of paint on there, we really do need to think about that. Let's have it coming from this direction, so it's casting that lovely light in this direction. Now knowing that that shadow, or that light should I say, is casting shadows this way, that helps now when we will go to apply the paint, because I want to leave a nice light area here on the centre of my daisy. So you can see I've not actually painted that part of the daisy. It's got a bit of a hard edge, so I'm just going to clean my brush and just get a thirsty brush by rubbing it into the cloth, and I'll just soften those little edges. There we go. Now it's still nice and wet, so let's make an orange. So let's take some of the Alizarian Crimson. It's a bit sticky, that one. A little bit more of that orange. And let's start to drop that colour in. Of course, you don't have to use my colours. I'm using 3 primaries again. You can use a ready mixed orange, I suppose. Just taking that to the bottom half, and again I'm just going to take a little bit of yellow and just tease that wash together. It's a variegated wash. You're allowing that colour to mix on the paper. I'm going to take a little bit more of that crimson. Probably a little bit too thick, that, so I'll add a bit of water to that. And I'm just going to drop in some of that crimson just around the edge. And I love the way that's just snaking its way into that wash. What I'd ideally like to do is just to let this dry for a few minutes. I don't want it to dry totally, so I want it to still be wet, because what I want us to do is to pull some colour out as well while we've still got it. So let's just take a little bit of that yellow and help it along. So we're going to have the light coming from this way, but that doesn't mean that we can't have a bit of colour flowing out into our petals. Plenty of water, and I'm just going to soften those washes away, letting it catch on the edge, pulling that wash out. Oh, that's just so nice, so pretty. Put a bit of yellow against that. Remember that little light edge that we kept before? We still want to keep that. If you've lost it, by the way, you really can just take a very thirsty brush and just keep pulling that colour away. You'll never really get back to the white paper, but what will happen is you're lifting that extra colour off, so it's taking it down to a lighter yellow now. Before I do anything else with this, it's still very wet. Let's see where else we can work. Let's put a little green stem in here. So if I take some of the yellow, and we'll just run that down here. Some of the blue. And again, just allowing that to run in. Oh, should we put some orange in as well? I don't know what that's going to look like, but it might look nice. Let's do that as well. Let's put a bit of, why not? It's an exercise in using all these colours. Maybe tap that with my brush a little bit and let that wash kind of loosen up as well. Okay. It's very, very wet, and what I want us to do next is to work into some details into the petal shapes, so it has to be dry. But one last thing before it totally dries is I'm going to give mine a little spritz with my special bottle. It's just a normal water bottle. I love doing this because I love the texture that it creates. I'm hoping it's getting the timing right, so I'm hoping that that is ready. So here goes. Do it high up. Oh, there we go. Can you see? You probably can't, but you can see all that lovely kind of texture that you get into that wash when you spray it. It's like magic. I might leave it again for another minute and give it another little spritz, but what we'll do is we'll continue when it's completely dry. So we're relatively dry, and the next stage would be, say, to put some shadows on the petals themselves. Now, remembering this is a white daisy, and I know you're saying, oh, there's so much colour on there already, but we're really going to play around with those background washes and make this stand out, so we can afford to put more colour onto those whites. Let's take a little bit of that turquoise. I don't want it to be too strong. It's probably about right. And I'm thinking about the light again. I'm thinking that these petals on this side would probably have a bit of a shadow on them. So put a blob of paint on and I'll wash it away. Like that. Let's find a few more. Maybe that one might cast a shadow on that one. Maybe that one might cast a shadow on that one. I'm not using a reference photograph, so I'm just kind of making it up as I go along. And I know you're screaming, but I can't do that. But you can, because I've found that when I'm using a reference photograph, especially if I'm doing a workshop and I give my students a photograph to work from, they sort of freeze on me because they see how complicated it is. When we start working from memory, just kind of making things up, as long as we're following a certain amount of rules, of course, it doesn't half liberate us, because we're not comparing what we've got here with a reference photograph over here. So take it or leave it, that's my advice. Let's put some nice little linear marks in there as well. There we go. Nice. Yeah, go on, a little shadow there as well. So the petals are nice and wet now. I'd like to let this dry again before I start to work in that area. But there are areas that we can work in. We can work here, can't we? Because this area is dry. Mrs. Impatient again. I always want to crack on, but there's no harm in that. If, you know, you're not playing a dangerous game. It is dry there. There we go. Nice thick mixture of that blue. And again, it could be any blue. Did I mention I'd changed my water, by the way? That's quite important as well, because the other one was looking a bit like watercolour soup. So always nice to have clean water, because then you'll get clean washes. Now we're painting against the shapes. Let's come in here. Please be dry. Oh, it's still a little bit wet. Don't meddle with it though. So notice I'm using the point of my brush to draw a line, and I'm using the belly of the brush to push that wash out. In fact, I think it would be easier with a slightly bigger brush. Let's go on to our larger brush. And we're just pulling these washes out. And then at some point what I'd like to do is introduce some of the colour. So because that's quite thick paint, I'm going to clean my brush and I'm going to use the side of my brush, this part here, to push that wash away. Pushing it away. Till it becomes a nice kind of simple wash. No hard edges. And we'll pull that in again. There we go. Let's change colour. Let's clean our brush. And let's come in with the yellow perhaps. So what's going to happen here is we're mixing a secondary colour on our paper. And that's going to give us that lovely yellow. And you can kind of work your way around your picture like this. Maybe tap in some yellows. It all depends on how brave you're feeling. Let's change tack. Let's take some of this beautiful crimson colour. Let's make a wash down here with that. Oh, that is so nice. If we introduce it into the yellow as well, we're going to get a nice orange. That's quite a lot, isn't it? Let's put a little bit on this side as well. Remembering it's still wet up there, isn't it? So, whoops. That's what happens when it's too wet. Okay, don't worry. Softening away again. So I've put the wash on and now I'm just using the heel of the brush, pushing that wash around. Very aware of what's happening over here. So I need to kind of speed this up a little bit. There we go. Notice as well that I've left this little tiny line here for the light to catch the side of the stem. Okay, cleaning my brush, pulling the water out and lifting that colour off. Let's do that again. Cleaning the brush, taking the water out and pulling that colour away. Let's do it here as well. There we go. It'll probably seep back in a little bit. Just give it a little bit of a dab and we should be fine. Spritz time. So let's give it a little bit of a spritz on this side. Let's go back into that blue again and let's introduce it here to this colour, to the red. Could be using two brushes here, couldn't we? Let's take some more of that crimson, pull that in there. So we're going to get a lovely purple. I'm just reloading my crimson. There we go. I'd like it to be a little bit thicker. point of the brush to get into those little shapes. And the belly of the brush. In fact, I can use the other one now because that's got the blue on to pull that away. Just take a little bit more of that. Let's paint around our little butterfly. I was going to do him a colour, but I think it'd be nice if we left him nice and white. So that means practicing our negative painting all over again, doesn't it? Painting around that shape, like so. Softening away with the heel of the brush. There's quite a lot of paint in this section here, so I'm going to pull it up. Let it kind of blend in here. Maybe a little bit here as well. While it's all still nice and wet. Now you can see it's completely soaking wet through. And there's happy accidents, there's unhappy accidents. What we're going to do is we're going to let it dry and we're going to pull it together with the final dark tones. So we're nice and dry, and hopefully, like me, you've got these lovely little bits of gorgeous texture going on in your paper. And I'm really sorry because when I went to the material list at the beginning, I forgot to mention that I'm using the Saunders Waterford paper. It's a heavy paper and it's a really lovely paper. It loves watercolour so much. So yeah, when I'm doing something nice and special, especially with washes like this, the Saunders Waterford is perfect. Okay, let's think about putting a little bit of detail into this, and it's always a difficult one because we don't want to overwork it, but I can see a couple of areas. So I'm going to take the crimson and a little bit of that yellow and make a slightly darker orange. Do it on the paper. That really is the first time we've mixed a colour together. And I'm going to darken this side. And what that's going to do is it's going to really show up these lights as well. Cleaning my brush, softening that away. It's a shame because we are losing a little bit of that texture that we put in earlier on, but we can always spray it again. Maybe put some little darker dots in there as well. Maybe a little indentation. Just in the centre there. That's nice. So we've got this gorgeous textured part here. This is quite a flat wash, but we can always give it a little spritz later on if we want to. I kind of like the petals as they are. I think they just need a few little touches of shadow. So again, I'm going to come in and maybe just reinforce a couple of shadows. So let's this petal cast a shadow onto that one, and let this one cast a shadow onto that one. And I'm actually exploiting where I want those shadows really, because I'm putting them, can you see here, against the darks. That's where we want them. So it really just kind of show off that section. Just pulls it out a little bit more, doesn't it? Can we see some more? Yeah, maybe this one could darken a little bit. Maybe this one. Again, I apply the blue. I just pull that away with my clean brush. Just reinforcing those centre lines as well. Your picture will be different to mine, obviously, because they're never exactly the same unless we've traced them, and there's nothing wrong with tracing, but even the washes will dictate, you know, they will behave in a different way. I'm liking the way that this is looking now, but I can see areas in my picture that need strengthening, and I'm sure you can as well. In particular, I think I need to strengthen this bit. Now, you may not need to. Yours may be nice and dark under there, but what I'd like to do is to give it a bit more oomph. There's a lot of oomph just gone into that palette. Let's take the blue. Let's put that right in here. I'll go over the stem as well. I'm going to clean the brush and I'm going to introduce a little bit of that red into that as well. So it's kind of blending in with the wash underneath, isn't it? Cleaning my brush and just pulling that wash down. Can we see any more? It's difficult, isn't it? Maybe here, maybe a little bit darker here. So again, I'm going to take that blue. Let's really come in this corner. Maybe a little ragged edge on that one. Clean the brush. Just pull that away, nice and gently. Maybe put a little touch of that crimson in there as well. You may have decided that you want yellows up in this corner, and there's nothing wrong with that. We're all playing at being different, aren't we? So change your colour combinations. Make it yours. It's very easy as well to overwork, and I'm very mindful that that's not happening. I'm just going to cover that. Give a bit of a spritz. We've put a bit of yellow here, but I am going to introduce it somewhere else as well. Maybe take a little bit up into this already yellow section. Remember, we put red here, so I'll introduce the red to the yellow. Pull that wash away. Push that yellow up. Let's give our little butterfly just a little bit of definition. So let's just darken this little tiny bit of wing. And maybe put some nice little shapes like that. Very light. Because when this is dry, we could just pop a little body in there as well. And if you've not gone dark enough, you can always play around with that. It could come in quite a dark purple. You really want to show your butterfly off. Rolling that brush around. One more spritz, I think. There you go. Let's let it dry. Hopefully we've finished, but you may see a couple of other bits. I can see a little bit here, perhaps I could have worked on, but I think we'll let it dry first, then we don't get any unhappy accidents. So here's the final painting, and you can see I did darken this side here. I put a little bit of extra purple here as well. Again, like I said before, your picture will be different to mine, so you may want areas that need strengthening and others that don't need touching at all. I kind of love the way the washes have all kind of gone all textury and colourful, and I like that. It's nicer than just a simple flat wash, especially for a floral. It just gives it that little bit of energy, doesn't it? Nice little tip for you. Years ago when I started painting, at this point I would get the white paint out and I'd start pushing white paint everywhere until it kind of just lost its beauty altogether. And so I stopped doing that. But I can see, like, maybe I'd like a little highlight just along here. So I've got my old craft knife here, and I'll just catch little bits of the paper. Now that's going to stop me getting the white out. Now I've created this lovely kind of a little highlight. I can also pick out, sorry, the blade's just gone in. I can also pick out little bits on here as well. Just catching that paper. It's a nice textured paper, so it can handle it. And if you've got a petal that needs reinforcing, then of course, you know, you could drag down the side of one or two of the petals. It's like anything else. Don't overdo it. So with that in mind, I shall take my own advice. But there you go. I hope you've enjoyed painting that with me, or just watching and just relaxing and watching someone else paint. That's a good thing to do as well, especially during this lockdown period. If you've enjoyed it, then please do like the video, and also it would be lovely if you could subscribe, and the big red button is at the bottom of this video and it says subscribe. Just press on that. It doesn't cost you anything, it's completely free, and you're doing me a massive favour by doing that as well. There we go. I hope you've enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time.